get our little acceleration here with the CHR. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're gonna be going over a 2021 Toyota CHR. And if you guys are wondering, this color is called Blue Eclipse Metallic. I think it's absolutely beautiful. But first and foremost, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Toyota here in Murray for giving me some time with the CHR. Check out their inventory in the link below. Let's get straight into the video. So under the hood of the CHR, we have a naturally aspirated 2-liter 4-cylinder that goes through a CVT automatic transmission. Fuel economy is 27 around town and then 31 on the highway, with power outputs being 144 horsepower and then 139 pound-feet of torque. Go over the front end of the CHR. So first and foremost, again, I love the color on this one. That's why I picked this one out to review. But you guys can see we've got these full LED lights here, and hopefully you guys can see the LED accent lights as well. I think it just looks really good in general. Just the whole lighting cluster just definitely has this like modern look to it. Fog light just down below, and I love how they do like the design there with that. And then you guys can see it's all blacked out here. You've got the Toyota logo, and then also it's blacked out in that little area as well. So it kind of has like a sporty look, and the logo does double as a sensor if you were wondering. But yeah, overall the front end of the CHR definitely has this like modern, cool look, and yeah, I think it just looks really good. Now let's go over things around the side here. So we've got two 25mm tires on 18-inch wheels in the front and over in the rear as well. As for the design on the wheels, I think they look absolutely fantastic. It just looks like this cool like knife blade. I love how they do the silver on the top and they've got the darker gray. Just gives it a really cool look. And again, these are really nice wheels, especially with the price point that this SUV is at. And then you guys can see we've got the plastic molding that goes all around. It goes over the side of the CHR as well. And if you guys look at the side of the CHR, this thing looks absolutely ridiculous from the side angle. Let's pop into the rear of the CHR. So first off, you guys can see I've got a cargo cover here in the rear, and then you get your little CHR floor mat. And then yes, you can pick up the floor here, and this is where the spare tire spends most of its existence. And other than that, the storage space back here is pretty good. It's about the same as like what you'd expect in most like hatchback vehicles, if you guys are wondering, just from a size comparison standpoint. But other than that, that's everything for the trunk area. Go over the rest of the rear of the CHR, and this is where things get really crazy. So first and foremost, you have this ridiculous spoiler here at the top. I think it just looks really cool. And then obviously it's sloped like this, so they do have a wiper for the rear. And then you guys can see you've got the taillights here, which the design on them is pretty crazy. All of your regular badging here with the CHR as well. But you guys can see just a bunch of like sharp lines. I love how it like bulges out here on the side. And then if you guys were wondering, with the exhaust tip, it's just over there on the other side of the CHR. You guys can see it right next to that little wheel right there. But yeah, other than that, everything is pretty crazy here from a back end perspective. Now let's go over the door panel on the rear of the CHR. So you guys can see you've got this nice textured material here on the side. I love how this looks. Obviously it's not like super soft to the touch, but that doesn't really matter. You're not going to rest your arm on that. You can rest your arm on this little area right here, obviously. And then you can see the seats here in the rear. So you've got soft touch all over the seats, nice perforations here in the center of the seats, and the bolsters here just are really soft to the touch. But let's actually pop in. So stepping in, I do have to duck a little bit, similar to like what I'd have to do in a car. If you're wondering, I'm 5'11". I've got actually a good amount of headroom, and legroom's not bad either back here. It's actually pretty good for being such a small sized SUV. And then you guys can see nothing happening there except for a lot of dust for some reason. But that's everything for the rear of the CHR. Here's the door panel in the front of the CHR. So again, you've got that really cool trim here at the top, and they put a little bit down there as well. And you got soft touch here. You're actually going to rest your arm. Bunch of window controls with the piano black trim. Then you got your mirror adjustments as well. And then here are the seats at the front. So just as nice as the seats in the rear. So you've got soft touch all over, and they do some like perforations here, but then different perforations there in the center and on the sides. And then the bolsters down here, just as soft as the ones in the rear. You've got your adjustments there on the side of the seat, and then you guys can see the pedal layout just right there in that little area. And this is your little gas cap release. That's for the lights. And there's one more look before we pop in. Now here's the steering wheel with the CHR. So you guys can see you've got soft touch all around the steering wheel itself, and then more of that piano black trim here on the center portion. And then notice you've got your collision assistance right here, lane departure assistance as well, controls for the center screen, and you got your volume controls, voice command controls, phone controls on the other side. You have your stock for the lights just behind the steering wheel on the left side. Over here on the right side, you've got the stock for the windshield wipers. And other than that, it's actually a really good looking steering wheel. Now here's the center gauge cluster with the CHR. So you guys can see that you've got RPMs over on the left side. Over on the right side, you've got the speed. And then here in the center screen, you can see there's a couple different menus you can scroll through with the CHR. Nothing too crazy, just gives you different bits of information on the vehicle. You can see like the safety tech, the radio, all that kind of stuff. Again, pretty standard setup. Most vehicles have something like this, but I think it's pretty awesome. This has a G-force monitor. Like, this is just like a regular practical SUV, and they have something so you guys can see your G-forces that you're pulling. Now here's the infotainment system. First and foremost, let's actually pop it in reverse. You guys can see the backup camera. Now you've got the trajectory lines with the backup camera. Nothing too crazy resolution on it. It's pretty good though. And then as for the rest of the infotainment system, first off, response time with the buttons is really good. Like, you pretty much press stuff and it'll happen instantaneously from a response time with the buttons. And then pressing the screen, it's just as responsive. Now this doesn't look like the most modern from a screen perspective, but it functions all the same as a modern screen. And so then you're just going to be really good on that. And other than that, it's just a good infotainment system in general. Now just down below the infotainment system, you can see that there's heated seat controls here for the front, and then you've got your climate controls as well. It does have a dual zone climate, which is another nice little feature. And then just down below that, you guys can see you've got some extra storage here with a little USB, and then we've got this cup holder right here, and then we have the shifter for that CVT automatic transmission. You do have the manual shift function if you want to. Well, it doesn't have gears, but you guys know what I mean. It mimics having gears if you want to shift it yourself. And then you got your parking brake just down below that with the auto hold, and then the stability control. Now we can see the whole center console area. So again, we've got a cup holder right here, and then you've got more soft touch on the center console. And then opening up, you guys can see storage space is pretty good, and you get a 12 volts inside of it. And then there's all that nice piano black trim all around this area. And notice it's on the dash as well. And the other nice thing about the dash is, look, you got soft touch up here. So just overall, from like a material standpoint, this is actually really nice, and the interior is just really well put together. It just looks really good in general. And then you guys can see you've got the glove box right here. So it's just a button. So you just push the button in and the glove box will pop right open. It's actually a pretty decent sized glove box, especially since this is a smaller sized SUV, and that's all. So yeah. Up top here, you guys can see that we have some weird stuff happening. So the light is definitely in an interesting shape, and you just have the buttons on either side to turn the light on or off. Nothing too crazy there. But the interesting thing is on the roof, there are these, I don't know what these are for. They just are different. Like, I don't know. It's just weird, but it's cool at the same time, but it's also strange. Now that we're done going over the interior on the CHR, let's quickly get into the pricing. So in terms of pricing, this CHR stickers for about $28,000 before any type of market adjustment. That all being said, let's take this CHR Limited out and see how it drives. Talk about visibility before we set off here in the CHR. So you guys can see visibility over the hood. It's actually really easy to see out of it. It is a little bit of a longer dash, but it's still easy to see. You've got your visibility through the mirrors, and they do have blind spot monitoring. And then here's the visibility all throughout the rest of the rear. So obviously with the crazy design, it does make it so visibility is a little bit worse here in the rear, but again, it's got blind spot monitoring, and pretty much every SUV in this segment has pretty poor visibility out of the rear. So that all being said, let's set off. We are setting off here in the 2021 CHR, and first and foremost, let's talk about the road noise and the ride quality. So from a ride quality perspective, this is a lot smoother than I remember. I reviewed a 2020 CHR last year, and I don't remember it being this smooth, so this is actually really nice. And then from the noise coming into the cabin, I would rate that at about average for this type of SUV. It's not any louder, not any quieter, but it's very smooth. I'm really impressed with this. This definitely has more of a luxury car feel to it from a ride quality perspective, which, I mean, obviously that's what you'd want with purchasing like a higher up package like this is, since this is in the Limited. But yeah, it's a lot better. I would definitely rate the ride quality at above average for the segment for sure. And then in terms of like the initial acceleration, so getting up and going, obviously you guys heard the power figures. It's not crazy, but it has enough power to get up and go around town, no problem. You really don't need any more power than what this has for around town driving. But obviously we'll get our acceleration in just a little bit. And that FJ, this is not related to the video, but that FJ looks really cool, actually. So whoever owns that, good job. Turning here, oh, the steering is super light. It's actually relatively direct. This is definitely above average for an SUV in terms of the directness with the steering, but it's very, very light and effortless. And so I feel like Toyota definitely, as weird as this sounds, because this is supposed to just be kind of like more of like your practical like budget SUV, Toyota actually did a really good job with kind of tuning this more towards the luxury side. Let's get our little acceleration here with the CHR. Yeah, so like I said, it does a decent job around town getting up and going, but once you get up to higher speeds, obviously it's going to drop off. You want something with a lot more power if you're wanting more, but this is more about the fuel economy. But let's put it into the manual mode and let's see how responsive this CVT is over in the manual mode. It's actually really good in the manual mode. Like, the downshifts are relatively quick. They're on par with most automatic transmissions. And the upshifts are very smooth. Speed-wise, again, they're on par with most regular automatic transmissions that actually have gears. And so this is actually pretty decent from a shifting perspective. And that'll actually get me into summing things up here with the CHR. So first and foremost, from an exterior styling perspective, I love this segment of SUV because they all look crazy. Like, all of the SUVs in this segment, they just go way out there with the styling, which I absolutely love. I love crazy styled cars because whenever you see this, like, you notice, because it, even though it's a small SUV, it's got a decent amount of road presence because it looks so ridiculous on the outside. And then I love some of the weird interior quirks, like the thing on the top. Interior materials are pretty good, but I mean, for under $30,000 for being a loaded up package, it's actually really good. It's got a ton of safety tech as well. Obviously the infotainment system, like I said, I really like that with the response time. And so just as an overall package, I think the CHR is actually a really good value because you get the all-wheel drive, you get a really nice interior, you get a bunch of safety tech as well, and then on top of that you get this crazy styling. And so if you're looking for like a just really good like all-around car that's practical, that you have a little bit more ground clearance compared to like a hatchback, and you've got a bunch of safety tech, then this is definitely a really good option to look into. I think this is actually a really good value. It's a lot better than I thought originally. That is going to sum things up for our video on this 2021 Toyota CHR in the limited package. And again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Toyota here in Murray for giving me some time with the CHR. Check out their inventory in the link below. I'll see all of you in that next video.